Hello, this is Dan with Orbital Guitars, and welcome to part 3 of the all-Walnut Wyvern build. I'm going to start by making some custom knobs out of the offcuts from both the body and the fretboard, so it's a walnut knob with an ebony top. I use this circular drill bit in my drill press. The bit drills a 1/4 inch hole in the center as well, which will fit over the shaft of the potentiometer. Then I take the block of wood over to the bandsaw and cut the knobs loose. After that, I go back to my drill press and cut some plugs for the tops of the knobs, glue them in, and sand them flat. Next, I decided to decorate the knobs a little further, so I'm cutting out some decorative pieces from some more of the gold mother of pearl that I used to inlay the fretboard. I stick the knobs to a long flat piece of wood with masking tape and superglue to hold them in place while I mark out where to remove material, and then route out the inlay space with a precision router bit in my Dremel, after which I'll clean up the inlay edges with a chisel. After that, I'll set the mother of pearl pieces into place and secure them with some thin CA glue. Now, to add a little more to the inlay on the knobs, I drill a small hole at the back end of the arrowhead-shaped inlays, and then fill those holes with some of the crushed turquoise that I had used for the fretboard inlay. Again, I'll also fill gaps between the turquoise bits with some ebony dust, and then flood it with some more thin CA glue. Once all of that is cured, I carefully file away the excess and sand it flush with a leveling beam. Next, I drill a small hole in the side of all 3 knobs for the set screws that will allow them to be tightened once they are on the shafts of the potentiometers. With all of the major work done on the knobs, I set them on a 1/4 inch dowel rod in my drill press, which I will use as a sort of lathe in order to sand the knobs, starting at 100 grit and working my way up to 320. At this point, some more work needs to be done on the neck. First, cutting away the excess wood from the heel. Then, moving to the drill press to drill the tuner holes. And then I decided that being able to see the three pieces of the neck on the front of the headstock didn't feel like it fit with the body, so I took an offcut piece from the body and thinned it down to be a headstock veneer, then roughly cut the outer shape and cut away a slot for the truss rod cover. Then I traced that slot onto a piece of ebony, then cut it and sand it to match. With that done, I can glue the veneer onto the headstock. Once the glue is dry, I go to my spindle sander to carefully sand away the excess to match the headstock shape. And then here, I have no idea what the camera was trying to focus on, but, well, it sure did. Anyway, it was supposed to be a shot of a somewhat decorative carve on the back of the headstock, but we'll see that later. After that, I will drill the hole in the truss rod cover for the screw that will hold it in place, and then countersink it. Now, with all of the work on the neck done, I'm ready to glue it into the body. I could use my plastic glue spreader for this, or a brush, but I find it to be quicker and easier just to use a finger. Then I press the neck into the pocket, clamp it into place with a clamping caul on the back of the body, and use the fretboard radius block as a clamping caul on the front. In this case, the glue joint was large enough that I could get 2 clamps on it. And then I use a damp rag to wipe away any squeeze out. After that glue has dried overnight, I draw in some rough lines to carve with my angle grinder. This process is very similar to carving the body as I described in the previous video, though I tend to not carve as far when doing the neck joint, and then I'll do more work with unpowered tools afterward, starting with a half-round carving file, then moving to a half-round rasp. Totally smooth transitions like this are the reason that I like to do set neck or through neck guitars. It just feels to me like a much more elegant result than what you can get with a bolt-on neck. And then it's time to finally do the fretwork. I start by marking the top of each fret with a marker, then going over them with a leveling beam. After that, I tape off the fretboard to crown and polish the frets. I don't show much of the process here because there are dozens, if not hundreds, of other videos out there already that fully explain every single step in great detail. With the frets done, it's time to install the nut. First, I need to remove part of the headstock veneer that was in the way, then make sure that the slot is square, and at the appropriate depth for the nut. Then I apply 2 small drops of superglue to the end of the fretboard and then press the nut into place. At this point, I noticed that there were some small cracks that had formed in the headstock veneer near the top of the headstock and decided to fill them. First, I paint in some gold grain filler, then pack in some metallic gold flake and flood with superglue. Then I sand it flush. It doesn't look like much now, but will be more visible once the finish is applied. And speaking of finish, this is one of my favorite things about working with walnut. The natural color of the wood really starts to shine once the finish goes on. For this build I use Crimson Guitar's penetrating finishing oil. And now I'll just let this part of the video speak for itself. Once the oil has cured, I can apply the shielding paint to the back plates and interior of the control cavities as well as in the pickup pockets. Now it's time for assembly. I'll start by threading in the ground wire through one of the bridge posts, then hammer the bushings into place. Then I'll slide in the potentiometers and toggle switch. Drill screw holes for the tuners, and here we can actually see that carve on the back of the headstock. And then I'll install the tuners. Test fit the bridge, tailpiece, and knobs. Install the jack socket. Set the pickups in place. This guitar has a Seymour Duncan Fat Cat P90 in the neck and a Duncan JB in the bridge. And now I would show some of the wiring, but every shot looked like this, so you'll just have to trust me when I say that some soldering occurred. With the wiring done, I do a test to make sure that it is all working as intended, which it is, so then I can screw on the back plates. Next, I put on the two outer strings and use them to finalize the position of the pickups, then drill the holes to screw them down. After that, I put the rest of the strings on and then use them to help me finish filing the nut slots. Then I'll install the truss rod cover. And finally, I install the strap locks. Which brings us to the end of part 3 of this guitar build. Social media links are in the description, as well as my business email and a link to my Reverb shop where you can find any of my guitars that are currently up for sale, and some guitar body design routing templates since people have kept asking me about dimensions of my designs. So, as always, thank you for watching, and the full build and demo video should be up in about a week.